at the end. So once again, welcome everyone to the Clear Admit Inside the MBA Admissions Process webinar series. We're going to get started. My name is Graham, and I am the co-founder of Clear Admit. I'm going to moderate today's panel discussion. And just in terms of housekeeping, we're going to spend some time asking questions of our panelists. Panelists are from Emory, INSEAD, London Business School, Michigan Ross, and Wharton at UPenn. And then at the end of that, each of our panelists is going to break out into a little Zoom breakout room where you can ask them questions. So because of that, we encourage you to hold on to your audience questions until we get to those breakouts when you can interact with our panelists individually. But speaking of our panelists, why don't we introduce them quickly as we get into today's session? So first up, we have Melissa Rapp. She is the Associate Dean of Graduate Admissions at Emory's Goizueta Business School. Welcome, Melissa.
Thanks, Graham. It's great to be here.
Yeah, wonderful to have you. Next up, I'd like to introduce Virginie Fougea, and she is the Global Director of Admissions at INSEAD. Welcome, Virginie.
Hi, thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure to have you. Next up, we have David Simpson, who's the Admissions Director for MBA and the Masters in Finance programs over at London Business School. Hi, David.
Hey, Graham. Thanks very much for inviting. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. We're also going to hear today from Lisa Wang, who's an Associate Director for Full-Time MBA Admissions at Michigan Ross. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. And then last but not least, we're going to hear from Claire Devlin, who's an Associate Director of Admissions at Wharton over at the University of Pennsylvania. Welcome, Claire.
Hi, thanks. Excited to be here. Talk about admissions today.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So let's dive in. We have a kind of two-parter that we're going to begin with, and I wanted each of our panelists to kind of tackle this, and we'll start with Melissa. We're just going to go alphabetically today by school name. Sorry, Wharton. But so Melissa, I wanted to know if you would be willing to share, on the high level, like, is there any market difference between applying in round one or round two? I'm suspecting that this is on people's mind as we're kind of around the round one deadlines or just past them for some of you, and then round two is on the horizon. So that's the first part. And then the second thing I want you to do is just tell us a little bit about how your school conducts interviews. So who's doing the interviews? How do they get scheduled? And what is the interviewer seen before they sit down with the candidate or have a video session with them? Oh, you're on mute.
How many years on Zoom? Anyway, so for us at Emory, there's no real competitive advantage or disadvantage when you're comparing round one to round two. All admissions committees are looking to build a class over the course of the recruitment cycle, but in my experience, there are always plenty of spots still in round two. I don't think that all of the standout candidates apply in round one. We see very top tier candidates in both round one and round two, and we always have scholarship budgets. So we're kind of planning to take a certain percentage of the class in round one and a certain percentage in round two, and they're fairly equal. I think the best time to apply is when your application is at its best. So I don't see any reason to rush for round one. If you need to wait until round two, that's the better thing to do. But in terms of, from our point of view, there isn't an advantage or disadvantage between round one and round two.
Okay.
In terms
Excellent.
of interviews, oh, go ahead, Graham.
No, I was saying that's a terrific answer. And now, yeah, let's talk about interviews a little bit.
Yeah. So our interviews are conducted by admissions staff. We don't have any students or alumni participating in our interviews. We schedule those online, so students have the opportunity, once they're invited, to have access to that calendar. You choose the time that is convenient for you. And the interviewer has access to your resume. And that is all they have access to here at Emory.
Okay, excellent. All right, so let's now see what Virginie has to say on these two questions. And Virginie, I guess for the purposes of this discussion, let's talk about your like September start date, right? So your
Sure.
first round and second round for those. Any difference?
So absolutely no difference. To be very honest, we know the quality we are looking for. We know the sort of profiles we are recruiting. So absolutely no differences. The deadlines, to be very honest, the rounds are there to help applicants more than us. They are there to help you know when you should hear from us. And maybe you have applied to multiple schools, or maybe you have to give notice to your employers or organize yourself moving to the US or to France, or regardless of the school you decide to attend. So for all these reasons, we make sure that you have enough information on the dates so you can organize your life. We know this is a life-changing experience to move back to school. So for these reasons, we have this visibility. But in terms of chances, it's exactly the same.
Okay, interesting. What about interviewing? Tell us just a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, so the interviews are organized with alumni in the country where you live. We prefer in-person interviews rather than over Zoom, even though we do accept those. But in person is usually a lot more insightful for you, for yourself as an applicant, but also for us, because we are very much interested in understanding how you interact, how you express your ideas, and this sort of things. And that's often easier in person, all the non-verbal cues and this sort of thing. So that is a lot easier. And the way we organize those are, again, as I said, based in the country where you're based. Because we have alumni all over the world, we rely on them. We want the alumni to be able to interview you and have a say on your application. They are an important part of the process and of the school. And your admissions officer is in charge of coordinating this. So if you were to change countries or traveling to this person will be able to help you with the logistics as well.
Okay, excellent. All right, so let's talk with David now at London Business School on these two questions. And yeah, so round one, round two, and then a little bit about interviewing.
Sure, yeah, thanks. So there's no difference for us between rounds 1 and round 2. We have expectations on roughly how many people will apply and what proportion that will make of the applicant pool and the class. We don't have strict cutoffs. The same kind of proportions come up year after year after year, so the data seems to be consistent. So yeah, it's all about you. It's when you're ready. I would say when you've got everything ready, apply, because it's all your prep time. Don't hover around waiting to finesse the essays for the 50th time. Just get it sent. But saying that, there's no disadvantage to being round 2. I know you haven't asked, but I'm gonna chuck it in anyway. We have 3 rounds for our MBA and our 1-year MBA. And the third round, we are also pretty open. It's slightly different, but the first 2 rounds are the big ones, no difference between them.
Okay, excellent. So there are all these myths out there. If you need only spend a few minutes on Reddit to kind of see that people are saying things like, oh, there's no money left for scholarships if I apply in the second round versus the first. But it sounds like, I mean, so far everyone's saying no difference. Is that even with scholarship, David? That's true?
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, slightly different set of rules for the third and final round, and I bet we all say
Sure.
the same thing there. But the first 2 rounds, no, we we manage the number of places remaining and scholarships in line with what we've seen over the years, which doesn't tend to deviate. The same is true of the kind of class diversity, which is key for, I'm sure, all of us. But at London Business School, it's super important that we have a well-formed, well-crafted class. We do that step by step. And we don't really start finessing it until the final round. For the first 2 rounds, it's if you're great, then you stand an equal chance in either of the 2 rounds.
Okay.
But yeah, in terms of the interviews, we're alumni only, apart from a small number that senior staff do. So I do a few. So if you're really unlucky, you might end up with me rather than our alumni. But on the whole, it's alumni, face-to-face or virtual, and we give candidates and alum the choice. We match. A big deal thing for us is to match by location and background. So very often it'll be an alum who works in the area of your aspiration, or perhaps in the area of your prior work, but you've got something in common. So you're not just speaking to someone who knows the school well, who paid for it, who did it, who's living it afterwards, but also knows a bit more about what you do, as well as local knowledge of, I know the Indian market because I'm in India, so I know a bit more about you and your background. And the alumni interviewers have access to everything in the application, plus the notes that we make from admissions committee with questions that we would like answering at interview.
Wow. Okay. Good to know. Lisa, how about at Michigan Ross? Any differences between the rounds and then interview process?
Yeah, I mean, very similar to what all of my other colleagues already shared. There's really no significant difference. We also have 3 rounds, and it's really the best to apply when you feel the most confident and ready with your application so that you are putting your best foot forward. The only thing I will add is for all of our international applicants out there. Now, if you are coming from a country that you know typically has a very long visa processing timeline, or it's very difficult for you to get a visa interview, that is the only time where we might recommend, hey, you might want to consider preparing for an application a little bit earlier on so that you are leaving yourself more time for that visa processing timeline, and that you're not rushing and running into hurdles, and then you're not able to come on campus even though you've been admitted. So that is the only time where we do recommend students, maybe consider applying earlier, but really it's all the same, and you should be doing it when you feel the most confident with your application.
Okay. And I just want to, since we're kind of myth busting a little bit on these things that we see on the internet, real quick, I've also read people saying all the really good candidates apply in the first round. And so I'm going to wait and apply in the second round because it'll be easier to stand out. Is that true?
Absolutely not. I mean, every round, and I'm sure everyone knows, every recruiting cycle is so unique and different, right? It really depends on what that application pool looks like. So for round one, it might have been really competitive last year, but does that, translate to this year? Absolutely not, right? So again, rather than thinking about outside factors that you really can't predict or control, focus on putting your best foot forward.
Okay. And then tell us a little bit about interviews at Ross.
Yeah, so all of our interviews are by invitation only and conducted virtually via Zoom by our alumni. And so we are matching you with someone within your time zone or region. We try our best to do that so that you guys are able to find a good time for both of you. And the alum will only have access to your resume. So it is a blind interview.
Okay, excellent. And just for our audience to know, I mean, the reason we're asking that question in particular is because I think it's really useful when you go into an interview, obviously, to know, like, what does the person on the other side know about you? Because that really changes the way you might prepare. So in any event, let's turn to Claire over at Wharton. Claire, any difference between round one and round two at Wharton? Are you going to break the string of yeah.
Nope, I'm falling into line. I echo everything my colleagues have said. There's no difference in round one and round two. We see similar strength across both pools. And like everyone else has said, we keep space in the class for round two, so there's no competitive advantage or disadvantage to applying between either round, and scholarship money, or your chances of getting a scholarship are also equal. Like London Business School and Michigan, we do have a third round. However, at Wharton, the third round is much more competitive, so we recommend applying in round one or round two.
Okay, excellent. How about the interview process? That is a bit different at Wharton, right?
Yes, so I'm gonna elaborate on that a little bit more later, but it is it's called the team-based discussion. It's a group interview with other applicants. It's conducted either by admission staff or by one of 50-ish second-year students who are trained to be admission fellows. You're given a prompt ahead of time. You prepare a brief presentation, and then it's kind of a discussion. They are by invitation only. They are completely random. The group that you're part of, the admission staff you're assigned to, or the student you're assigned to, you schedule it online at your convenience, and the reviewer has not, or the evaluator has not reviewed any part of your application prior to the interview.
Okay, terrific. All right, so now we're going to move into the next segment here, which is where we get to go a little bit behind the curtain with each of our panelists on their process. And I just want to remind our audience that all of our panelists are going to do individual Zoom breakouts at the end of the main segment here. So stay tuned. You'll be able to bounce in and ask your questions to them directly. But in any event, let's start again with Emory. Melissa, I wanted to know if you'd be willing to just talk about something that's a little different about your application process, like some unique aspect of it. And I guess, I mean, one of the things I'm curious to know is any advice you have to someone as they prepare for whatever this thing you're going to highlight is, and also like what is the admissions team looking for? Like, why are you doing this? Whatever this thing is, if it's an essay question or a way you're interviewing, et cetera.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times candidates ask themselves a lot, why is admissions doing this? But I think I'll highlight our video essay. This is something that has become something that you see more often, but we've been doing this for a long time. And I think our motivation for starting to have the video essay and for continuing to have the video essay is that it does give everyone on the team a chance to see you and to hear from you. Applications collect data. Sometimes that's a little cold. The essays do give us some idea of who you are and what you're about. The video essay, though, just adds a very personalized touch, and we really do want to get to know our candidates on a deeper level, and this gives you the opportunity to feel like you're talking to the admissions committee. In previous years, we've always referred to this as kind of like a cocktail question, and they've been kind of light and fun. This year, we actually made them small talk questions, which the difference may not be totally obvious, but the small talk questions are a little deeper and are going to ask you about your values or about why you're getting an MBA. And so there's a little more substance to that answer that you're going to give. And again, I think the committee really values this because not everyone is very eloquent at essays, and sometimes there's just a great story that didn't fit in anywhere that people are able to express during that video essay. And so it's become a really interesting and valued part of our application process. I know candidates do get worried about it because they're like, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what to do. You do get to practice, so don't be afraid about that. And I have seen everything. So if your cat walks across the screen, if your toddler comes in the room, if the power goes out, these things happen. It's not going to make or break or sink your application, but it is something that we've really come to enjoy.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so that was one of the things that I was thinking that you might speak to. The other thing that I'm going to ask you about is you have these, I don't know, I guess you would call them short answers in the application form, and they're like 40-word, short answer questions in the data form, right? So, and two of them are what I would call kind of standard. It's sort of like about your career or why you want to get an MBA. But then there's this other one that I was telling you, I think is a bit of like a wild card, and it's basically asks for a fun fact. And I sort of wonder like any advice, because there's just one that they get to share. They have 40 words. I mean, any tips here, and why are you asking that?
Yeah. So we definitely wanted to sort of push applicants to be more concise in their writing. We found our essays were getting to be a little verbose and just more than what we needed. So we did separate out those questions about career things into a shorter form answer. And then we also added back in the fun facts. So this is something that had previously been on our application that the team really felt like, again, allowed them to get to know candidates on a different level. I think what's important for candidates to understand is, at least at Emory, we're not just looking, if it were as easy as your GMAT score and your undergrad GPA and where you work, that's all we would ask for. The truth is, you're going to come to us as a whole person. You're not a test score, you're not a grade point average, and you're not your title at work. You're a whole human being. And so our hope is that this provides candidates a way to, again, share something that didn't fit neatly in the application. We want to know, I'm super passionate about turtles. Okay, well, that's pretty cool. Maybe we need a turtle lover here at Emory. Those kinds of things that really make you who you are, but aren't able to be neatly fit into the application.
Got it. Yeah, that's a great example. And I was actually thinking, I saw one, this is maybe from before when it was in the, like a few years back or something, but the person said something about how they used to drive an ice cream truck in the summers, when they were in like finishing high school, or maybe it was during college or something. But like these, yeah, it's kind of a fun thing that, as you say, doesn't really fit in the application in the normal kind of, construct of it. So that must be a lot of fun for you all to read.
One of our favorite parts for sure.
Yeah. Excellent. All right, let's now turn to Virginie. And same thing, Virginie, tell us about something that's sort of unique or unusual about your application process, and how people might get ready for it, and why you have that in the process.
So for today, let me focus on one thing that we decided to change for this year, and people might wonder what it means, because we had not changed the essays for a number of years, but this year we decided to. So we have kept the first essay unchanged, but then the second one has been tweaked and has been moved to a written question on Kira, as well as a video question. And so the first thing, let me elaborate on why we decided to make those changes. I think that was coming from the fact that we wanted to really make these enhancements to reflect our commitment to making your application experience as smooth and insightful as possible. We understand that it can sound a little bit dreadful from time to time, or that not everyone is at ease with writing essay questions. We also have ChatGPT now, or other GPT functions, appealing, but yet helpful or not so helpful, depends on your point of view. So for this reason, we decided to reduce the number of essay in the application form itself. And so we hope that will lessen the burden on you as applicants, while also still giving you ample opportunities, or varied opportunities, to express yourself, to showcase your unique profiles, and in different fashions. So one would be in writing, and the other one would be on a video. And our goal is to really, since this is still to get to know the real you, your passions, your resilience, your unique perspective, or any perspective you have on the world, or your upbringing, this sort of things that we are interested in. So obviously, by giving you this opportunity, we are not only focusing on your skills, and on skills that are increasingly vital in today's world, in the professional world. We are also ensuring that our admissions process not only select the most promising applicants, but also helps you prepare for the future, for your successful post-MBA career. So that was the intention behind those changes. And I would say people should really think of taking advantage of everything we have available to help you prepare. We have a dedicated team that is, and Marina is joining me after in the session for the Q&A, to really, this team is dedicated to help you prepare for your best application, but also kill a few myths like you are doing today, and advise you on a number of, give you some pointers. and take advantage of the fact that we have recorded questions live for people to be able to prepare, test their mic, test their internet connection. So we have made available a number of features to really demystify and help you for this process of applying to us.
Excellent. So I do want to ask you, and you didn't get into this too much when we were talking about the interview process, maybe because you knew I might ask this, but
I don't
one of the
know.
things about the interview process at INSEAD is that there are two interviews,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So everyone who gets an invitation actually gets two invitations. Can you just tell us about what that is and yeah, why do you guys do that?
So we do too. Again, it can sound a little bit heavy, but in the reality, it's to give you two opportunities to convey your messages. We can all have a bad day. We can all have a moment where we don't click with somebody, and that's perfectly fair and that's perfectly fine. So the reason for this is really to give you as many chances to showcase your profile. The other thing is we purposely choose people that are a little bit close to your background and somebody who will be a lot more different from your own background. And for this reason, so the way we select alumni, the way my team selects alumni for the interviews is really not to is not to close the door for INSEAD, but on the contrary, to open the door. So it's a unique way to convey your motivation to the alumni. And the team selects interviewers not in a random or just going by alphabetical order. It's really matching your profile. And that enables you to really share in a genuine fashion, in a genuine way, your motivation. So this is the reason for two interviews.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really nice idea to be able to have the chance to tell your story twice. Very interesting. And also just to meet with two grads of the program. So
Yes.
let's turn to David now. David, what do you want to shed light on with respect to the process at London Business School?
It's a tough one because I know we have and we will talk more about interviews and things. And we've got a new essay as well, but I thought, well, I'll do something a bit different. We have a smaller question. We pepper these through the application, and not essays, they're short form questions, asking people about international experience or exposure. The specific question is, what's the most significant international experience you've had to date? And it's worded that way because some people are super global citizens. They've done everything, been everywhere, can't remember what they are. And other people have never really left their country other than perhaps the odd tourist trip. Both are fine. London Business School and a global education is about furthering what you have or building what you've had. And it might be about gaining your first international exposure. There's no advantage one or the other, actually. So this question allows people to tell us something that's been impactful to them, either a personal trip or a period of their life or something in their work. So it's just quite interesting and a bit different to get that perspective rather than list all the international experiences you've had so far. We don't want that. And it often forms a starting point for discussion at the interview in terms of that international exposure as well, especially if there's no evidence on someone's resume that they have done anything outside of their country or even their region. And I do want to emphasize that point of it doesn't matter if you haven't yet. We're not for the fully formed global citizens only.
Got it. And I guess, yeah, there are a few countries I can think of that are so large that sometimes making the trek from one end of that country to another could be a very, sort of really different experience in terms of the culture and even languages in some cases or dialects, et cetera. So, all right. So you said we might talk about interviews. You're absolutely right. I have a question for you. So in the London Business School interview, which you mentioned is with usually with a graduate of the program, we've heard this rumor that sometimes there is like a little mini presentation that the candidate is asked to do sort of on the spot during that interview. Can you speak to that? Is that top secret, or I mean, and how should people prepare? Why do you guys do that?
Yeah, it's not top secret, but it's not something although saying that, it's not something we necessarily list. We're kind
Hmm.
of in this twilight zone between the two now. Um, it's not the main part of the interview. The main part of the interview is our alum getting to know you, talking about your motivations and why London Business School. That's still the main thrust. We have this impromptu presentation during the interview, which is giving candidates, a pause, and here's a question. Go away and prepare it for a few minutes. Present back to me your thoughts, your opinion, your stance. So this is not a prepare in advance big deal. This is not a we're looking to see you as an incredibly polished, amazing presenter. This
Hmm.
might scare the heck out of you, or it might be something like, hey, I do this every day. We are not looking for perfection. We're looking to see where your base is. It gives us yet another perspective. The whole admissions process for all of us is putting together these different elements to give this as full a picture as possible about you before we can make a decision about whether to invite you to join. And with this question, it's usually on current sort of business topics, but at a very basic level. This is not a strategy consulting interview. So it really is just to see whether you're aware of what's going on in the world, or actually sometimes the questions sort of say, hey, this is happening, what do you think? So you might not even had to have heard of it. But think of it this way, those questions have to be broad enough that somebody who is a consultant can answer it, and also somebody who's perhaps a medical doctor or someone in the military or works in the arts. So they have to work for everybody, so we have a choice. But as I said, uh, it's not a huge deal. It's not a showstopper. Often it's
Hmm.
something like, well, this person's got some way to go, and this will make them stop and think about, there's some skills I really need to build on during my MBA. And
Hmm.
I know that we've admitted people who perhaps did not, this was not their best, finest hour, their best performance. And they were worried about that. It's like, no, we loved you at interview. Yeah, sure, you can improve on that. But this is not a showstopper, but it's an interesting element.
Okay. But I'm glad to hear you're not asking people, like how many golf balls you can fit into the hold of a 747 airplane or something, like those consulting case type
We'll
questions and
leave that
things.
to
So
Mackenzie. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. All right. Moving right along. Let's talk with Lisa at Michigan. Ross, what do you want to highlight for us, Lisa?
Yeah, so recently we also completely revamped our application essays. And I will say one of the things that we've been hearing a lot from our prospective students is how much confusion they've had, or I guess how much they're struggling with the part one of our essays, which is focused on the action-based learning environment that we have here at Ross. And so the question is very simple, right? It's how is this environment going to benefit you? And then how do you plan to contribute to this
Hmm.
action-based learning experience at Ross? And I think students are maybe thinking a little bit too complicated about this question. What we're really looking for is that you've done the research into the culture at Ross and what we have to offer here in terms of our action-based learning opportunities, right? Everyone knows about MAP, which is our signature kind of mini consulting project that's embedded into the curriculum in the first year. But in addition to MAP, Ross has so many different types of action-based learning opportunities for you to get involved with, from the STEVN-led student investment funds that we have, if investing is something that you're interested in, from someone if you're interested in business plus technology. We have a business plus tech innovation jam. That's a competition where you're creating a product with students across Ross and other, departments at U of M. We have accelerators here. So it's just a great variety of opportunities for you to really get that real world, I guess, situation, hands-on experience as you learn. And so it's really just sharing with us, how is this the type of environment that's going to benefit you? Are you a action-based learning type of learner, or are you a I like reading theories and I like, writing papers and doing research type of learner? And then how do you plan on contributing to making this experience right? Great for everyone involved, whether it's I'm a great team leader, right? I can help contribute to projects like this, or it's because I have a specialized, I don't know, interest in this area that I think could bring a different, unique view to a group project on something else. So it's really just showing to us that you are interested in the way that we do things here at Ross, and that you're committed to the culture of creating or fostering this action-based learning experience. Yeah.
And it sounds like maybe, I mean, engaging with current students or certainly reading all the material that you have up on the website and, would go a long way to just getting someone up to speed a bit, which you'd hope people are doing anyway if they're applying to your to your program.
Exactly.
I have a question for you that's a little kind of in the weeds, but I want to ask it. So there's this question that you ask in the application, which many would say is like a career goals essay question. It's about career plans. But the thing that stands out to me is that it's about short-term career plans. Like it asks people to talk about what they're going to do after business school, but it doesn't really ask about, 10 years later or the kind of what we would normally refer to as long-term goals. And I just wondered, is there a reason for that? And should candidates not talk about, well, I want to do consulting short-term because I later want to move into industry doing this, or should they really just keep it confined to that short-term goal?
So it's really up to them. This is what we tell everyone. If you only have a short-term career goal, right? Because not everyone's going to be planning 10 years down the road, to be very, very honest,
Right.
especially if they're only 25, 26. So it's absolutely fine if you only have a short-term immediate goal post MBA. And then again, we're really focusing on how is Ross specifically going to help you achieve this goal. Now, if you do have a long-term career goal, that's great. Share it with us, right? So tell us this is your short-term career goal because in the long term, you would actually like to do this. But again, come back to how is Ross going to help you achieve this? So that's really the main reason why we have that. It's not because we don't want to know what your long-term career goal is. It's just because people just might not know yet.
Mhm.
And life changes so much. We have plenty of students who tell us they want to go into consulting, but then they come in and they find out what consulting is actually like, and they're like, I don't want to do consulting anymore. So, right, it's also just a way for us to gauge that you actually have a logical and clear reason for why it is you are pursuing your MBA at this time. So it's a reflection of who you are at the time you're applying for your MBA, I would say.
Okay. Excellent. All right. Thanks for shedding light on that. Claire, you've been super patient here at the end of the alphabet. When we do our next, we have some lightning round questions that we'll do next. We'll start and we'll go backwards through the alphabet so that you don't have to wait as long this next time. But let's take us through. Tell us about something unique about the process at Wharton.
Yeah, so I mentioned the interviews earlier, and I want to elaborate on that because it is a very unique part of our application process and the interview process and interviews in the landscape of business school admissions and interviews. So the Wharton interview is called a team-based discussion, or a TBD, and the entire purpose of it is to mirror the experience of what it's like to be in the Wharton classroom, actively participating in discussions with peers who you may not know well, and kind of being able to read other people, use your own skills, and help to have a meaningful dialogue to build consensus on whatever it is you're trying to figure out. So as I mentioned, the interviews, the TBD, are by invitation only. It's completely random. So you're assigned to a group of 5 other candidates, 5 other applicants for a total of 6. You are put into a Zoom room, and your evaluator is either an admission staff like myself or 1 or 2 admission fellows who are second-year students. The evaluators are completely just there to observe. We will ask no questions until the very end. So when you're invited to interview, you're given a wealth of resources about what it's going to be like, what you have to prepare, what you should expect. So the crux of the interview is a prompt, and you're given the prompt ahead of time, so you have plenty of time to prepare. Prompts in the past have been so we have a program called the Wharton Global Youth Program. It brings highly qualified students from around the world to Wharton to take classes and kind of experience the business school environment while still a high school student. The prompt might be, as an MBA student, you've been tasked with creating a new program or a new course for the Wharton Global Youth students. So your focuses in creating this course are figuring out the content of the course, the name of the course, what faculty member you'll partner with, and a deliverable. So you get that prompt when you're invited to interview. You have plenty of time to prepare a 60-second presentation, which you deliver, or excuse me, your kind of elevator pitch about your ideas and how you've thought about this. You present that in the first minute. Everybody goes around, so that's 6 minutes of presentations, and then you have 20 minutes as a group to talk about it and to reach a consensus. And there's a timer on the screen. I'm getting into the weeds here, so you know exactly kind of what you're doing and how long you have. Like I said, the evaluator is completely kind of silent or on camera. We don't provide any reminders as to time or anything else regarding the structure. So all of that to say, it is just an exercise to allow you to understand what it's like to be in the Wharton classroom, as much as it is to allow us to kind of evaluate how you might operate in a classroom and with other peers. And then after that, approximately 25-minute kind of group exercise, you will be taken into a brief one-on-one with the evaluator to follow up with some questions about you. So that's kind of the 30,000 foot view of the TBD. I'll add that there is plenty of information about how to prepare for it. A lot of our student clubs and organizations will actually reach out to students and help prepare them. So a lot of our affinity clubs will be involved in helping prospective students get ready for the TBD. We also have information on kind of a how-to 101 TBD guide that our director of admission publishes each year. Like others have said, it sounds overwhelming. It can seem like a lot, but we find that people end up really enjoying it.
Yeah, I really appreciate you shedding light on that, because it is sort of very different from what the other schools typically do. So it's good for candidates to know that that's going to be a part of their process at Wharton if they're invited. I wanted to ask you about your essays. So I noticed in reading the essay questions that there seems to be this sort of balance or dichotomy of, information about the candidate, like their background and what they want to do, the experiences they've had, versus them also being asked to kind of talk about their intended path at Wharton or the resources at the school that they're hoping to take advantage of, and et cetera. So I'm kind of wondering, like, what's the right balance there? Because you could spend some of the two essay questions I'm thinking of, you could spend quite a bit of time just talking about yourself and your past experiences and what you're aiming to do. But I could also see someone spending a lot of time talking about what they are hoping to, specific things they're going to be doing at Wharton and classes they want to take or clubs they want to join. So is there a right balance to strike there?
Yeah, so I think it is, when approaching the prompt, each of these prompts, first consider that you do have a limited amount of space, right? So each essay is about 400 words, give or take 100. And we want to know basically three kind of pillars or tenets that can be the structure and kind of the foundation of how you approach your essay. So the first is, what from your professional experience, speaking generally, has been interesting to you and has brought you to the point of applying to business school because you want to learn more about it, you want to expand your knowledge in this topic, or you want to learn, you were exposed to a different practice area that you didn't actually work in and you want to learn more about that, et cetera. That what's brought you here, why Wharton is the best place for you to develop these resources or develop this, skill set, learn new, skills and knowledge that will help you advance your career in XYZ field that you've mentioned. And then what you want to do after Wharton and how Wharton will help you achieve that. So it's striking a balance between learning more about you and your general interests, short-term interests. If you have long-term interests, that's great too. But then how Wharton specifically will help you achieve that, because it would be great for us to learn like a really deep dive into you, but if we don't understand how Wharton fits into that, then it's going to be harder for us to evaluate you as a Wharton student and see how you fit into our community and learning why Wharton specifically is important. On the other hand, if you spend the entire essay name dropping every club that you've researched online, if you've talked to several of our students, if you're familiar with our professors, and you just list every single one of those, it's going to be hard for us to imagine you as a student and kind of figure out where you fit into our community because we don't know anything about you. So, you know, we always recommend picking a few kind of opportunities or resources at Wharton that will really help further your interests, further your career goals, and going in depth on those, as opposed to you know, listing off a ton. And picking a few of those will also allow you to strike a good balance between spending time teaching us about yourself while also, you know, showing us that Wharton is the school for you.
Okay. And I think Claire is underlining a really important general point for everyone, whether you're applying to INSEAD, Emory, Michigan, LBS, or Wharton. And that is, you know, getting to know these programs and how you intend to sort of travel, you know, through them, and what you're going to contribute is always a good exercise. So it's definitely should be doing that as part of your process. Claire, I want to stay with you. We have one more segment, which is these fun kind of lightning round questions that we're going to ask. And then just as a reminder to our audience, each of our panelists is going to break out into an individual Zoom where you can go and pepper them with questions that you have about their process. So definitely stick around. That's going to happen in a matter of minutes here. But Claire, there are 3 lightning round questions. The first one's totally fun. What's the best place to eat on or near campus at Wharton?
Wharton has, or so Penn, the whole university is one campus within a few blocks of each other. So there are some really excellent food trucks that range from like Mexican to Middle Eastern food to like grilled cheese and hot dogs and stuff. So I recommend the food trucks.
All right, I have been to that Mexican food truck. It's very good.
It's really
Highly
good.
recommended. All right, next up, what's just any kind of general advice that you have, just like a quick tidbit for people applying to Wharton?
I would say focus on the things you can control. So if you're not super happy with your undergrad GPA or your test scores, your GPA is out of your control. It happened, it's done. Test scores are, you know, to an extent within your control, but really focus on the essays. Pick people who can speak to you, you know, for your recommenders, and really focus again on those things that are completely in your control on the essay, on the application.
Okay, great advice. Last lightning round question in honor of Emery's short answer question. What is a fun fact about you, Claire?
I grew up in Portland, Maine, which is like not that fun of a fact, but I feel like people love Portland, Maine now, and it's becoming more popular. And so I always like to say that I was there first before it became super popular.
Excellent. All right, now we're going to turn to Lisa. We're going to go backwards through the alphabet here. So, Lisa, best place to eat on or near campus at Ross?
So many to choose from, but Aventura is a great place to go for some tapas and drinks. And then there's actually near North Campus, there's actually a new hot pot place with fall and winter coming for anyone interested in hot pot. It's called Palace Ton, and it's pretty nice over there. So those two definitely. And I do want to throw out Washtenaw Dairy. It's a local ice cream shop, and my son loves it. And we go there after his swim practice on Sundays with his friends.
Awesome. All right, I've noted that. What about a piece of general application advice for people interested in Ross?
I think self-reflection is very vital for the entire application process, all the way even to your MBA experience. Really reflect on why it is that you're looking for an MBA, what you're hoping to gain from it, and then also just, you know, how you can continue to improve yourself, you know, along the way. So self-reflection is really key, and it'll also help you really prepare for the interview well.
Excellent. And then one fun fact about you.
Fun fact about me, I like to relax by watching horror and thriller films. I am a true crime fan to the core, so that is my way of relaxing. I'll be doing the dishes and listening to like heat cut off 7 like people's heads and like so yeah, that's my idea of a relaxing time.
All right, we'll have to compare notes on favorite podcasts about true crime then at some
Yeah.
point. All right, let's turn now to David. David, best place to eat on or near campus?
Well, we have campus places to eat. They're okay, but we're in London, so I tend to kind of escape and just go nearby. If you're in a rush, I would just call in at one of the sushi places nearby because they're nice. My favorite place to go, I'm not going to share that because then I'll be surrounded by students and other staff. It's a place I go to gossip and catch up with a friend without being surrounded by colleagues. But it's central London. So we're on the edge of Marylebone as a district, which is lovely. You can get something really cheap and quick, or you can spend a fortune on a an amazing meal. So we're kind of blessed that way with what's around us. But who takes lunch these days?
All right. Next time I'm in London, you're taking me to this secret place. I'm
Okay.
noting that.
It's the wine list I'm more interested in than the food, to be honest for you.
Excellent. Okay. And then what about a piece of advice for applying to LBS, just general?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll all say very similar things. So I'm going to keep mine very short. I'm going to say exhibit your preparation. So show us you know us. Keep it simple as that. Research us and then indicate that you've done your research. We liked the fact that you are interested in us as a individual school.
Okay. And then a fun fact about you.
I've done a few of these with you, and some people might watch more than one, look back to them. So I'm not going to say music this time, although I went to a very good gig last week. My fun fact, I'm a supporter of a fairly niche sport called rugby league. It's only played in the north of England, Australia, New Zealand, and south of France. So it's like rugby, but slightly different.
Interesting. Yeah. So that answers our question about Arsenal versus Chelsea. It sounds like your answer is rugby. And
My
not,
answer is rugby league.
yeah,
It's not
yeah,
just
rugby league.
rugby. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Virginie, let's turn to you now. What's the best place to eat on or near campus?
It's actually on campus for our Fontainebleau campus in France, where we have a very nice restaurant overlooking the forest, with nice furnitures, very comfy, trendy, and affordable. And after all, we are in France, so food is part of the culture.
Yeah.
Don't mess with food. And and in Singapore, we have lots of restaurants and lots of delivery just nearby. It's very easy to grab food.
Yeah. Your fellow panelist said we should not have this question with France having, presence on the panel, says it's sort of an unfair question, right? But all right, let's move on. What about a tip for people applying to INSEAD?
I think I shared this already a little bit earlier, but it's really important to use everything that we have made available for people to prepare for the videos. We have recorded questions that people can try and test and check their background, check their sound and things like this. So really give yourself time to prepare. So if you were to apply just on the day of the deadline and then you have to complete the video, it's a lot happening at the same time. So taking your time and then make use of what we have made available.
Okay, excellent. And then last but not least, a fun fact.
Like David, I did many of these. So I think so one thing that very little people know is I can drive trucks, and if you know me, I'm not very tall, so and seeing me behind the wheel of a big rig surprises people sometimes. So, but I love it.
Now, is this linked to your other fun fact that you've shared before? Is it because
Yeah.
so you're driving large trucks because you have horses that are attached
Yes.
to the trucks
Yes.
sometimes? Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Yeah, wow. Okay, I love these questions. Now I know why Melissa asked this as part of her application. So Melissa, we're now going to turn to you. Let's do the lightning round with you. What's the best place to eat on or near campus at Emory?
So right near campus, we have an amazing deli called the General Mirror, which is fantastic for all of those who love bagels and lox and a good pastrami sandwich. A little bit further out, we have Ladybird on the Beltline. The Beltline is Atlanta's kind of walking cultural trail. There's lots of bars and restaurants, but Ladybird has a great outdoor area that's really popular with our students. They can take advantage of our great weather down here in Atlanta.
Awesome.
So I'm going to go with those two. But Waffle House, don't sleep on Waffle House in Georgia.
That's right.
Always a good option.
Is anyone else getting hungry? I'm kind of anyway. Okay, so the next question is just about a general tip that you might have for people looking at Goizueta.
Yeah, I'm gonna say if you haven't yet, start your application. We work with so many people who are thinking about it and then they keep thinking about it and they keep thinking about it. Just get started. The fact that you're on here today tells me that you're ready. So start an application. And my other piece of advice is submit the application. So we also deal with a lot of students who get started and then get overwhelmed or feel like, well, I just got a promotion. Maybe this isn't the right time. There's no perfect time. You're here now. Start and submit.
Yeah, that's terrific advice. I feel like I have seen so many people over the years on clearedmit.com who are sharing their profile and they're like, I'm going to apply next year. And it's always next year, and it's like, just do it, because
Yep.
it's a great opportunity. I don't think I've ever met someone who's like, oh, I'm really grumpy about the fact that I went to one of these great business schools. It's like, I mean, so anyway, all right, last thing we have to ask you, what is your fun fact?
Yeah. So my fun fact is I love to cook and recently returned from a trip to Africa. So I am working on perfecting my own jollof rice.
Oh, wow. Excellent. All right. So that's going to be the end of the main session. Now, each of our panelists is going to bounce off into a breakout, and we will open those breakout rooms in a second. I did want to sincerely thank Melissa, Virginie, David, Lisa, and Claire for all your time today. What we're going to do is let our panelists step backstage so that they can just get a moment as we set up the breakouts. I want to encourage our audience to stay with me for a minute, and we'll open up the breakouts. And I got some information to share with you about how to reach everyone and jump around between these rooms. But thanks so much, guys, for joining the panel. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Graham.
Thanks.
Sure.
It was loads of fun.
Thank you.
All right, so the breakouts will begin shortly. We're just going to let our panelists take a minute. Some of them may need to grab a drink of water or whatever that may be. So stay with me for a minute here. We will provide links to jump into each of the breakouts, and you might actually see them appear down below in a moment. But while you're waiting and while we're giving our panelists that time to get set up, I just wanted to tell you two quick things. The first is, on our website, clearedmit.com, there is a tool called Livewire. I'm sure that many of you have seen this. It's one of the most popular things that people use on our website, but it is basically a live feed of admissions outcomes. So people go in and they can anonymously share the fact that they've just dropped in an application at Emory, or that they just got an interview invitation at INSEAD. And so you can basically use this tool to share your admissions journey in an anonymous fashion. And it really helps candidates because you can sort it and look at like everyone else who's applying to the school or schools that you're targeting and just learn more about people's journey. And then the other thing I wanted to call your attention to is we have this thing on our website called the ClearAdmit Interview Archive. And what that is it's a place where it's sort of people helping people, right? So candidates who've interviewed at schools in the past leave notes about what their experience was. So they'll say, oh, I just had an interview at Wharton. The team-based discussion went like this. And it's a great place. It's actually the largest repository on the internet of interview reports. And it's just terrific. It's a free resource, open to all. We do also publish interview guides that you can read about each individual program. But the interview archive is a great place to start if you are, if you make it to that phase of the process and you're invited to interview somewhere. There's just a wealth of information in there about how this process works and just what people's experiences were like. So again, two quick resources. As you all probably know, ClearAdmit exists to help applicants. The site is free. We're not looking to make money off of candidates. It's really just there to help demystify what can be a kind of mysterious process, right? So that's our mission as an organization. And as I said earlier, we're going to be back next week and the week after with 2 more sessions. I wish I had the list handy of schools that are taking part, but off the top of my head, I know Berkeley, Yale, Columbia. Oh boy, I'm going to forget some. Anyway, there are another 10 schools over the next 2 weeks that are taking part. They're all top programs in the world. So please come and join us. In the meantime, we're going to open up the breakout rooms for you so that you can bounce around. So you can actually go into one. You can only do one at a time, but you could go and ask a question of Lisa over at Ross. And then once that question's been answered, you could bounce over and have a chat with Virginie or Melissa or David or Claire. So everyone is now able, I think, to get into the to the breakouts. So please enjoy your time talking with the schools. And thank you so much for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to see so many of you taking part in these events. And hopefully we'll see you all next week.